Welcome to Barcelona and to the cultural and architectural grandeur of the Catalan capital. In our first two programmes in this series from Catalonia, we've asked about the politics and the economics and where this want-to-be republic is going. Today we ask a deeper question, and that is, what is Catalonia? Is it an autonomous region of Spain? Is it an ancient European nation? Is it a language-based cultural identity? Is it a community of interest? Once we can answer that question, then we'll be able to determine where it's likely that Catalonia is going to end up. But first over to Tasmina in the studio with your tweets, your emails and your messages.
And first we hear from Evolving Peasant, who says, so refreshing, interruption-free, straight-talking economists. Superb watch and listen. Terry says, great show as ever. Love the way you end the show on goodbye for now. We've not seen the last of you in your bonnets, eh, Alex? No, you haven't, because I'll be back on in a few seconds. Bob says, just catching up on a backlog of Alex Salmond Show episodes and interviews with Henry McLeish regarding independence, Westminster and especially Brexit. These were fascinating. And that's a reminder to everybody, if you can't watch the show live, it's all available on the RT.com website, on Alex's Facebook and our YouTube channel. Bobby McPherson says, great interview with Henry McLeish, timely, refreshing and straight talking on Scotland's political situation. Trump and the dangerous company he keeps are among the interesting topics. Best show yet. Doogie says, fascinating to hear the parallels between Scotland and Catalonia. Professor Ventura was particularly persuasive. Yes, he was indeed. Suleiman, who tweets us in from Catalonia, says, big thanks from Catalonia. I get the feeling our two countries are going to be close friends in the coming years. I do hope so. Now, in our first two programmes on Catalonia, we looked at the politics and the economics of the constitutional battle being fought with Spain. Today's show goes deeper into Catalan people and culture, as Alex attempts to answer the question of what is Catalonia. Now, who better to answer on the culture of Catalonia than her leading poet? And who better to know what the people are saying than one of the key hosts in Catalonia's top radio station? So back to Alex in Barcelona.
Well, where better to start this exploration of Catalan national identity than to interview the top poet in Catalan? I spoke to Francesc Parcerisas. Francesc, welcome to the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you very much.
Now, you're seen by many worldwide as the leader of what's often called the miracle generation of Catalan poets. What provoked such an upsurge in the Catalan poetry of your generation?
I think, you know, people born in the 40s and 50s, by the time we were able to decide what we wanted to do, we had two ways in front of us as far as writing goes. We could choose to write in Catalan or we could choose to write in Spanish. We had been brought up in Spanish, that was under the Franco regime for all of us. We didn't have television, we didn't have radio, we didn't have newspapers. Very few books from mid-50s onwards. Then if you decide to write, I think what you look at is what you know. And what you know is what you have surrounding you. Your family, your landscape, your language. And that language was Catalan. So it's like the sap through a tree that goes to the branches and then might become green or not, and have flowers or not, but that depends.
So the suppression of Catalan under Franco actually led to the opposite effect that the old dictator was looking for?
I think partly because you saw what was happening and why. I mean, when you look around, even as a child, you realize you are using a language and maybe your family knows or sings in those songs. You go to a village and that's the language that is spoken. And suddenly in the public place, this language doesn't exist. It's like a ghost. And children have curiosity. And you try to discover. And when you discover, you realize that those are your roots. And I think it's important to find your roots if you want to grow, and also if you want to become yourself.
Now, Robert Burns, Scotland's national poet, wrote famously in the Scots language primarily. because he wanted to make a statement that the Scots language was as valid, the equal of English or any other language? Did you want to demonstrate that you could express ideas perhaps for you better in Catalan and in Spanish or any other language?
I think partly was trying to express your own ideas, I would say your feelings and your emotions more than the ideas. The language, the tools we had were all in another language. So it was important for us to recover the tools, to join the eldest, which were not all that old. And I think we were very welcome by the generation who had been born just before the Civil War and who thought probably that they were the last generation in that culture, in that language. And when they saw that they were young people, innocent enough to join the literary world or wanting to write poetry, they really helped us a lot. And you felt in good company, and you felt also belonging to a tradition which was ours.
Now, when you were starting out as a young man, as a young poet, did you think that half a century or so later you'd be in an environment where Catalan is the leading language, the official language of Catalonia? Did you think that transition would carry that far?
It's very difficult to know what you thought when you were young. I cannot jump into myself 60 years ago or 70 years ago. Probably not.
To answer a question I've been trying to answer in this programme is, for the international audience, what is Catalonia? Is Catalonia an ancient nation? Is it an autonomous region? Is it part of the European continent? Is it a community of identity? What is Catalonia?
I think it's all these things together. It's an old nation. It's the people, basically. I think the people belonging and wanted to belong to the Catalan identity. It's a language, it's a history, it's a culture, it's a landscape. It's many things. I think it's what makes Scottish people Scots, what makes French people French, what makes even American people, who is one of the newest nations, American. I think it's loving something which is there and it's common to everyone, and also something which comes from far back in history, and also having some sort of common future, something to look ahead, something which in the future is going to be better than what we have now or what we had in the past.
That's a great answer, Francesc. Listen, I don't know what the future holds for Catalonia, but I hope it's a good one, and I hope it can be toasted in a quaich. Now,
thank you.
I know that you know the drill.
Thank you very much.
Whiskey in the quaich.
I actually have a bottle to be open that some friends brought from St. Andrews last weekend.
And did you bring it with you?
No, because...
Thank you for the interview.
I know where that whiskey is going to go.
Thank you, Francesc.
Thank you.
I'm now joined by Marc Martínez Amat. Now, you're a journalist in RAC 1, the top radio station in Catalonia. You've got your finger on the pulse. I mean, what are the people saying about the events of the last few months?
Well, I think there's a lot of worry from people about what's going on in Catalonia. So maybe some years ago, polls didn't show a lot of people thinking about this issue. People by then were more worried about unemployment, economics, corruption. But from the latest events of last year, polls show that people is now thinking about independence as a thing unsolved and asking politicians to solve it.
So we're in the middle of this bustling radio station. I mean, what are your listeners phoning in about? I mean, are they phoning in about independence? Are they phoning in telling the politicians to get on with it? What's the word in the street?
Well, I think that there are a lot of people thinking that this issue should be tackled with a referendum. Other people thinking that there's no way to solve it in an agreed or through an agreement with Madrid, and that the Catalan government should go and just declare independence and try to implement a republic. And some other people think that all this issue should be forget, and let's go to the autonomy and let's do other things more easy to achieve.
Where do you think this argument, this political debate is going? Do you think there's going to be a new strategy evolving from the independence supporters? Do you think the new government in Spain is going to be more conducive to at least talking? And what's going to happen now?
I think we are in a turning point after what has happened in the last months, especially in October with the referendum, the Declaration of Independence. I think that now the pro-independence parties should have a reflection, should think about what will be the next step to take, and they are not together in what can be a roadmap.
Your assessment, is there going to be meaningful discussions between the new president in Catalonia and the new prime minister in Spain? Are they going to be able to come to any understanding?
I think they are going to de-escalate the tension, but further than this, I don't know if the talks can go farther, because the cornerstone of the question is, what is Catalonia? So what, according to the Spanish government, is Catalonia? It's just most of the people in favor of independence, but also people against independence, think that Catalonia is a community with the right to decide.
Thinking about journalism, reporting on these extraordinary events, I mean, is it a boon for journalism? I mean, are more people buying newspapers? Are more people tuning into the radio?
Yes. There was a huge interest on what was going on these days. So, you know that in media we can check the audience minute by minute, especially people connecting by internet. And those days, I think we had a record of listeners waiting for news and what was the reaction of what was going on.
Well, Mark, I don't know if I can supply the Scotch whisky, but I can supply the quake, the receptacle. You know the drill, the whisky and the quake, and then you can toast Catalonia and Scotland.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, one of the features of this Catalan debate has been the prevalence of Catalan academics working overseas, and the prevalence also of the online media. Coming up after the break, I speak to a professor from Princeton University and the founder of the oldest online newspaper in the whole of Europe.
Welcome back. In attempting to answer the question, what is Catalonia, Alex has turned to poetry and to radio phone-ins. Now he looks at academia and online publications to find out what the people are telling the pollsters and what they're tweeting. Carles Boix was a professor of political science at Princeton University, has a doctorate from Harvard University, and was an advisor to the World Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank. He's been a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences since October 2010 and was awarded the 2012 Oberta Foundation Prize.
Professor, explaining Catalonia, the feelings of people in Catalonia, you know, as the independence support has grown, have the Catalan feelings of identity as a nation increased?
You are right that the sentiment pro-independence has grown. 10 years ago, it was only about, let's say, 15% of the population that would be in favor of voting for a separate country or a nation, and now it's close to 50%. I don't think that national identity has changed that much. It has become stronger, and especially the support for this, let's say, more radical solution has grown. Catalans always felt a nation, or at least since in modern politics, but they always thought that it would be possible to live as a set of nations within Spain, and that was, I think, the project that took place in the 19th century, most of the 20th century, trying to reform Spain, to engage Spain, to get political autonomy, and the independence group was basically a minority, and that is what has changed. The way to solve this conflict.
And how is the support for independence, or even the feelings of Catalan nationality, how is it distributed on first among the age groups in the population and also in the socioeconomic groups? Are there big differences?
Well, as you know, there are two main groups, like 45 to 48% of the population say that would vote yes in a referendum on independence. 40% now say no, and the rest are ambiguous and have no opinion. There is clearly a difference in terms of age, so older people are less in favor of independence. I would say that perhaps it's only 30%. Versus, so there is a clear majority in favor of no or union with Spain among old people. Among the young, I would say it's 2/3 that are in favor of independence if we believe the current survey. So age is important. The second thing that is important is family. So basically 80% of Catalans have at least one grandparent born outside Catalonia. So we cannot think of Catalans as an ethnic group. It's basically, a civic community of people that some of them have family that goes back to, the 19th century, 18th century, whatever. But most of the population have very mixed origins. Now, within those that have mixed origins, those that have more grandparents that were born here, they are more in favor of Catalan independence. But it's not about ethnicity, I would say. It's about being rooted.
So, Professor Boix, you say that the demographics tell us that the vast majority of young people favour Catalan independence. Does this mean that the independence movement in Catalonia just basically has to keep calm and wait for demographics and age to carry them forward?
Well, I don't know, because things change and preferences might change, and the response of the Spanish government may change, although I doubt it. But yes, in a way, I would put it in a slightly different way, that perhaps some things were done about half a generation earlier, so that in 10 years the majority of people in favor of independence would be big enough to win a self-determination referendum. And that's what I don't understand about the Spanish government, because if I were me, I would go for a referendum now when things are kind of even, because if you wait and you use all these repressive strategies that they are using, you may end up losing completely.
Well, we can't foretell the future, but what I can foretell is that you're going to be presented with the Alex Salmond Quaich. The drill is whiskey in the quaich, only Scotch whiskey, nothing else works, and passed around your close friends.
It will be only Scotch. It's the only one that I drink.
Thank you so much, Professor. Now, the online media has played a crucial role in the Catalan debate. I speak now to Vicent Partal, Editor-in-Chief of VilaWeb, an online newspaper that has a claim to be the oldest online newspaper in the whole of Europe. Congratulations on your longevity of your newspaper.
Thank you. We keep living still 23 years old now.
So how big a role has the social media and the online media played in the reporting of events and obviously campaigning events in Catalonia?
I think that's a trend all over the world, but in Catalonia it's very specific. The big mass media in Catalonia, the paper newspapers, the Spanish TV channels, etc., they all support the unity of Spain. They don't support the pro-independence drive. Even they are strongly against the independence drive. So the dissemination of the message came more from online media and from the social media. It played a major role.
But what is the basis of the Catalonian national feeling?
Catalonia is a country, let's say it that way. It's a country that always has been fighting for freedom. Individual freedom, collective freedom. Not only Catalan freedom, but for instance, every time Spain has been under a dictatorship, the most strong people fighting for freedom in Spain were the Catalans. It's a very open society that has been always thinking himself as a nation and having the right that every nation have to self-determination. For decades after the Franco dying, the idea was to help Spain to become a mother country. But all of a sudden, on 2010, when the Spanish Constitutional Court broke the agreement.
So you would regard that as a seminal moment, a watershed moment, when the Spanish Constitutional Court reversed the agreement on the Statute of Autonomy, which had already been passed in a referendum by the people of Catalonia.
That's absolutely the beginning of everything. Because there were sort of a pact, the so-called two keys pact. Catalonia have the autonomy, and Catalonia can decide. But Spain keep a key, which is everything decided in Catalonia must go to the Spanish Parliament and voted there. But then Catalonia have their own key also, which is that everything voted in the Spanish Parliament must come back to Catalonia and be voted in a referendum. So it was a good pact. You have both sides have a way to prevent major problems. What happens with the Constitutional Court breaking this pact was the beginning of all the whole situation we have now, because the people say, okay, so this is not a fair agreement as it was, the two key system.
So the political reaction to that was to change the balance of opinion in Catalonia, which previously had been for autonomy, but only a minority for independence. That then became a much more balanced situation between the independence supporters and those who were still for the union with Spain.
Absolutely. But I think that was not the only thing. At the same time, the movement started as a grassroots movement. And it was very important, the so-called popular referendums. That was self-organized referendums. In every little town, there were, I think, 700, something like this, referendums, which of course were not official referendums. But that showed the people that they have the power. So they can decide, they can organize themselves, they can build something. And that was a direct confrontation with the regime that was born in Spain after the Franco dictatorship. That is a very eccentric regime in terms of democracy in Europe, because it prevents very much the people having power.
Let me take you to the 1st of October, when these dramatic events of the organised referendum, the violence by the state police sent in, the world watching what the events of. Where were you when all this was going on? How were you reporting it?
Well, we were reporting. The first moment I remember was almost 11 in the morning, 9 in the morning, sorry, when the ballot boxes were open and police went to the President Puigdemont's own electoral college. And the whole country saw the police breaking the glasses of the building and so much violence that we all thought this is impossible. It cannot happen that. Very difficult in order to having information that you must know if this is real or not, checking the information, checking with the sources. What really very difficult time. I remember, for instance, we were the first one saying that there were not elections, but the independence will be proclaimed 2 days before the proclamation of independence. And for 50 minutes, no other media confirmed that at the end was true. But these 15 minutes were astonishing for me. I was like saying, oh my God, if we were wrong, that's the end, but we were right, but if we were wrong, that's the end. It's a very difficult moment for journalism, but it's fantastic. I think it's a privilege. It's the first draft of history at the end.
You're in a good position to forecast the future. Where are we going now? I mean, is that the events of last October as big a watershed as the rejection of the constitutional agreement of 2010?
Well, I think what happened on the October the 1st, more than a political question, was a sentimental affair. This is the end. For a part of the Catalan society, this is the end. This is a political problem. And the only solution to this problem must be political. And as they doesn't want to accept that, there is no solution. I think we will see again a very hot period of time starting in September, October, especially if Spain try to send to court the political prisoners, asking 30 years for them. If that happens, I think the drive for the Republic and independence will be again on the table. for the second time in less than 1 year.
There may be within the political discourse on all sides in Catalonia maybe something of an answer to this?
Absolutely. I think in Catalonia it's very difficult today to create a fake, extremely difficult, because there is so much people involved on any discussion. There is so much data available. There is so much people watching all the sides of the story that it is much difficult to have this debate on fake news, etc. It is, there are fake news, of course, but it is not so easy.
But more of it's real.
More often than real, we have a lot of real news this time.
Thank you so much for the interview. I have a quake, the Scots Gaelic for a loving cup. So it's whiskey in the quake, and pass it around all your many journalistic colleagues.
Try to celebrate something with this.
And thank you so much for the interview.
In the 3 programmes in this series, we've learned a good deal about the Catalan constitutional crisis. First, that dialogue has now started between the 2 new governments, one in Barcelona and one in Madrid. President Torra laid out his ideas for a breakthrough in negotiations, but it would be foolish to assume that this is imminent. Second, that the Catalan dispute, which began as an economic argument, has moved on to other even more fundamental issues, such as legality, democracy and nationhood. And finally today, that Catalan attitudes to themselves and to their future have been evolving with events such as a rejection by the Spanish Constitutional Court of the settlement of 2010, the violence of last October, and most recently, the imprisonment and effective exile of many independence leaders. A decade ago, most Catalans saw their future in Spain. Now the position is delicately balanced. Most fascinating of all was the suggestion that given the demographics of support for independence, with young people overwhelmingly in favour, the shrewd policy of the Spanish government might be to usher any referendum forward, and equally, the rational policy of the Catalan movement might be to delay until they have a more comfortable majority. That would be a total reversal of the current position and is unlikely to happen. What is more certain is this: if one key test of nationhood is a belief in self-determination, then Catalonia passes that standard. By overwhelming majority, Catalans want the right to decide, even if they are divided, on what the decision should be. It all makes for a riveting political battle with the endgame uncertain. What is certain is that Catalonia will stay a focus of both European and world attention. And so from Alex and the team in Catalonia and from me here in the studio, it's goodbye for now.